Sky's political correspondent Mari Aurora joins me now. So Michelle Mone stepping back for a period of time from the Lords.
Exactly, Jane. So Michelle Mone, the Baroness that's been kind of drowning in these allegations over the past few days since the revelations began in the Guardian newspaper, is taking a leave of absence with immediate effect while she, as it's put by her team, clears her name. Now, we know that her office, Michelle Mone's office, have said that they're going to be taking potentially legal action about these allegations against her. But what's really interesting is so far she still remains a Tory peer. She still has the Tory whip. Now, it's understood that the Conservative Party are essentially waiting for the Lords Standards Committee investigation to conclude before they make a decision about whether to withdraw the whip from Baroness Mone. But obviously this comes with the backdrop of what some would see as potentially dodgy dealings around COVID contracts. Now, obviously these are still just allegations, but if they are proven to be true, it could end up slightly tarnishing the Tories' record when it comes to COVID contracts and their handling of the pandemic. Now, the Labour Party, as you said, you showed that clip of Angela Rayner, they are highly critical, not just of this particular deal, but in general, the kind of so-called VIP lane, where they see it as those who, with the WhatsApp numbers of ministers or government officials, were essentially fast-tracked to potentially be able to get COVID contracts during the pandemic. Now, the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, has been up in the Commons just this afternoon trying to kind of justify and defend the government's decisions around those COVID contracts and try and explain the rush and the pressure that the government was under.
Mr. Speaker, it ignores both the pressure of time at the start of the pandemic and also the fact that this was an international competition with countries competing for very scarce resources. It is also the case that over 19,000 companies were offering PPE. Only 2,600, Mr. Speaker, passed initial due diligence checks.
Now, you see him from that clip there, he's really trying to explain that the government actually were trying to do their best when it came to these COVID contracts, and perhaps mistakes were made, but overall the intentions were good, and, you know, they always tried to point to that vaccine rollout that was a big success. Now, the Labour Party, we're expecting them to attempt to present a humble address motion this afternoon. Now, we've just heard in the past couple of hours that the government are not going to oppose that motion, which basically means that documents relating to MedPro, that company associated with Baroness Mone, will be revealed so people can try and look into these dealings with MedPro and potentially Baroness Mone's involvement. Now, I've been speaking to Tory MPs just to gauge a reaction on this. One Tory MP told me MPs aren't prepared to compromise their reputations by voting to protect others. It's the legacy of the Owen Paterson vote, and that's important to remember because it was about a year ago, just over a year ago, when all of this begun, where the Tory party was very much kind of seen as mired in sleaze around protecting their own, around that vote protecting Owen Paterson, and MPs feel they've learned that lesson and they don't want to get into that again. So for now, Rishi Sunak has very much dodged a bullet ahead of PMQs tomorrow. This would have been an open goal for the Labour Party to strike at, but at the same time, as we know, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, still has all of the strikes coming in Christmas and rebellions about house building and onshore wind and offshore wind. So realistically, he's still got a huge amount of problems to deal with. But this now potentially is one less.